I remember a conversation with Sean. It would be very interesting to see different apartments in New York in a film from an outsider's view. At the time, we lived about a Chinese restaurant, and we seen Chinese delivery men coming in and out every day. So we thought it would be very interesting to see New York through their eyes. So that's how making takeout started. And after I started interview them, knowing their stories, and the more we think it's a movie that definitely need to be made.
Oh, oh.
Xiqing and I made Takeout in 2003. So I was 32 years old when we were in production. I had already made a film in my 20s, which I completed, and it went to South by Southwest and had a small DVD release at the time, but it didn't propel my career forward in any way. It was me just cutting my teeth on making a feature film.
Dogma 95 filmmaking movement was very popular at the time. So after we watched The Idiots and The Celebration, we're very impressed of the way they make the film. The realism films is very powerful. And I would say that's the films that inspire us to make Takeout.
It essentially allowed us to pick up the consumer level video camera that we happen to have access to and make a feature and do it with confidence, knowing that films like this are being accepted now. We were starving artists, barely paying rent, but it was just the right time. In a way, for me, it was like a second chance. We scrounged together $3,000 and rented this video camera from a friend of ours for about $500 to $800, I believe, for a month, and went ahead and shot this on mini DV. We had to speak to real delivery guys. We had to learn more about that world. And in doing so, we started to understand the issue of the plight of the undocumented immigrant. But we had to spend time in a place, and we were looking everywhere. We found an amazing location on 103 in Amsterdam, a takeout that no longer exists.
怎么？今天你们都比我还早？开工了！开工了！
But it was a small Chinese takeout restaurant that had some heavy traffic. I mean, it was a busy restaurant.
We want to show the contrast of the affluent and poor residencies in the same area. So that's why we picked the restaurant on Amsterdam Avenue in Upper West Side. On one block, there are a lot of projects, but on the other blocks, there are a lot of dormant buildings. That shows the contrast right there.
他们是跟我老板讲，因为我坐前面，他们就是坐，看到我坐到这样熟，这不用去找人了。然后他就问我，你可以帮他们拍照片？我说没问题，只要你拍了你就拍了，我做不对你就告诉我，就是这样简单咯。所以我们就拍到就认识到现在咯，有10多年了。
They were very open to us shooting there and very open to us just hanging out, quite honestly, and doing research. So the month leading up to production, Xiqing and I spent almost every day in that restaurant. And I had this little mini DV camera, a PD-150.
然后他们就我一路做，有顾客来我就一路做我的，他有没有拍我也不知道。他说我做了，拍了了，拍了就拍了了。然后他们就去拍后面那些师傅做什么，他们去拍了。他拍我的，他有讲，他有先告诉我，我说我随便，我都不知道，有时候我拼命做我的顾客，对我的顾客。然后他拍了好了，他说拍好了，就是拍好了。 比如说没有给我压力啊，你知道吗？他没有说你要做这个动作，没有，我做我自己的事，然后他们就拍，所以就比较他又好我又好咯，他又没有压力，我又没有压力了 ，OK 了，不错。
I was shooting all of my B-roll during that month, and we approached it like a documentary. I mean, I was watching these guys make the dishes. So I would just document that. I would document customers coming in and interacting with Miss Lee. So by the end of that month, we had probably several hours of B-roll material that we would be able to cut into the film. So during that month that we were spending in that restaurant, hearing the stories of the real delivery men, of the real, the workers in the restaurant, it started to flesh itself out, along with the B-roll that we were shooting. So by the end of the month, we had a screenplay.
I found the listing, I think it was on Backstage or one of the, I guess, industry rags that are open to the public. I was still in school at the time. I remember in the listing it said Chinese speakers only. I think it was like a mandatory requirement of the role because, obviously it's in Mandarin Chinese. I'm Korean, South Korean, by the way, but I do speak, I guess, fluent enough Mandarin Chinese that I thought, like, you know what, I'm just gonna withhold the part that I'm Korean and just show up to the audition. The audition went, and I got a call back, and then I'm super excited. When I got the phone call, of course I got to play it cool. I'm like, oh, let me check my schedule. I have nothing going on. But when we did the second call back, and then when Sean offered me the part, I just remember such a douche. I was like, let me run this by my people. I have no people. I have a friend that was going to Fordham Law School, right? So I was like, hey, can you be my people? Can you read over this like contract about this and that, like, because I have no idea about any of that stuff. And so I remember I had returned the contract to Sean with like some red lines and stuff and like notes. And I was like, yeah, maybe they'll take me seriously now,
我在里面是有还蛮喜剧的特质，就是说蛮搞笑的特质这样子。那其实我觉得这个特质是我本来就有这样的个性的，这是第一个。第二个就是说，我不见得在平常生活可以这么放纵，这么随意去说什么就想什么就说什么，然后插科打诨这样搞笑。但是我觉得在里面就是这个角色是允许，真是希望你就是这样子。那我觉得在里面是非常的解放的感觉。
Because so much of the dialogue is in Mandarin, and I don't know Mandarin, Xing and I had to write the initial screenplay in English. And then she took all of the dialogue and translated it to Mandarin. And unfortunately, even though I love improvisation, we weren't able to allow improvisation during for any line that was in Mandarin, because if so, I wouldn't know what was going on. There was only actually one scene in which we allowed for improvisation, and I remember shooting it saying, I have no idea what's going on, and I had to wait till later where Xi-Ching actually subtitled all the raw footage for me to know exactly what went down in that scene, and it ends up being one of my favorite scenes in the film. It's the scene in which Johnny and Charles are talking about having this exchange about how he has to start smiling in order to get better tips.
等下去的时候啦，跟他讲了，你就说 Thank you very much.
These two just had a really one take, just a really great improv moment back and forth, and it actually was really funny. But I didn't even know it was good for 24 hours, and it was like waiting for dailies.
That was just totally unscripted, where he's like saying, the reason why you're not getting tips is because you're not smiling, and it's like meaning like smiling is so far beyond like where his mindset is at that he's kind of like learning how to smile for the first time almost, or relearning how to smile, and yeah, I mean that just kind of was one great example of how Johnny was a great comedic actor and just a great improviser, and we're just able to riff off of each other.
丁敏在里面就是好兄弟嘛，好哥们这样。那我当然是在那部戏才认识他嘛。那我知道闲聊，知道说他是一个韩国人，可是他因为好朋友是台湾人，所以他有到台湾来学中文这样子。所以当然这种一聊就是我觉得说，距离就会拉近嘛。然后这是我们在戏外就是会培养一些互相了解他是在做什么，然后他的背景是怎么样。那Charles 这个人还蛮有趣，就是说他其实他给我感觉他有点像 gangster 这样子他就是像那个帮派分子这样子，然后他讲话就是还蛮 酷酷的这样子，眼睛又小小眯眯的这样子，所以你会觉得他其实有一股那种兄弟的感觉那种，所以基本上我还蛮容易跟别人就是打成一片呐，所以很自然他跟我在戏外既然可以很自然的互动，
那他要看哪一个要拍哪一个人的。他就走进我们那边了，比如说他要拍那个外卖了，他就走在外面，看到他踩单车出去啊，就拍他了。如果他要拍我前面的怎样做，怎样对顾客的啊，他就在我前面那边拍咯。所以他拍得很清楚，我都有看过他的电影，有。
Hi, come on. Hello.
这个怎么有那么辣？
But you told me your star. You just told me a black and pink cut. That's why I sent. Okay. Next time you tell me my star. Okay, my honey.
You know, with takeout, I see us having acquired that restaurant as a miracle, but even more so the fact that Miss Lee was working at that restaurant. I mean, I can't imagine this film without her. If the audience is all of the customers coming in, she's sort of the link between, you know, the customers and the back of the restaurant and the workers, because she speaks English. She's the one who's actually interacting with everyday people. She was in many ways our consultant. She was one of the consultants on the film. She would tell us whether or not the scene we just shot was accurate or not, or rang true for her. And she was just funny too.
If you want me to charge you the soda,
Why, it's $5 anyway.
No. The shrimp fry right $4, $1 shrimp extra.
Oh yeah, you are giving me a discount.
Yeah, I'll see you next time.
And I wish I knew Cantonese, because supposedly her Cantonese delivery on some of her lines is like comic gold, which I'll never be able to fully appreciate, which kind of sucks. It's my own film, and I'm not able to fully appreciate some of her amazing delivery.
Oh, good. Thanks. Here you go.
We cast almost all the delivery customers through Craigslist, and we told them to act as normally as they do, and that's how we directed them.
Oh, hi. How are you? He's fine. He does that. How much is that, sir? Yeah, no, he won't bite you. He won't bite you. Oh, get back inside.
We allowed for and encouraged improvisation during all of the delivery scenes, because most of those were English, so I was able to understand what was going on.
No speaking English? No? Okay.
And so we would have very basic themes for each delivery. This person's going to be sympathetic. This person is not going to be sympathetic. This person's going to be complaining about their life. This person is going to be, I don't know, complaining about the tip, whatever. But we would have these things. We would show up at the doorstep of the people the apartments that we were shooting at, and we would sort of gauge having not met these actors before. Some of them being real actors, some of them being just people who thought this would be a fun thing. You know, we had this Craigslist ad in which people were replying to, and we would gauge their energy and sort of gauge their persona in about 30 seconds, and then apply that theme to them.
Hey! Jesus fucking Christ. Hello? My friend. Come here. Come here. What is this you brought? This is chicken, my friend, chicken. You know chicken? I ordered beef.
So we would come to their apartment, we would get to know the person for 30 seconds and say, I think we want you to play the guy who is complaining about the wrong order. Let's do that. What you hope for in this industry and as a filmmaker is to find partners that you connect with and have and are on the same page with, have the same sensibility or a similar sensibility. And Xi-Ching is one of those people. You know, she's one of those producers that can wear many hats. You know, she's done costume design on my film. She's done continuity. Like myself, I think we just try to know all aspects of filmmaking just in case we're ever in a place where we suddenly have to take on one of those roles. And as an independent filmmaker, when you're suddenly, you know, you have $3,000 to make a movie, you have to wear many, many hats. And Xi-Ching is great at wearing many hats. It was great working with her in that capacity as a co-director. And I think there was one moment, actually only one moment in the entire making of the film in which we did not see eye to eye on one scene, where it was pretty much like, no, this is how it has to be. No, this is how it has to be. And I remember Charles just going, or perhaps it was Johnny, hey, guys, just shoot it both ways. Just shoot it twice. It's not like we're just hanging around this Chinese restaurant. We have all the time in the world. Just do it twice, and we did. I don't remember what version made it into the film, but it doesn't matter.
It really felt like you're the only child of two parents that are fighting, you know, because both of their opinions on the activities of the day were very important to me. But if they were conflicting, then it's like I just had to kind of wait till the smoke settled, I guess.
If you're not a collaborator, you cannot be a co-director. I mean, you really, you have to, part of being a co-director is celebrating the other person's ideas as well. And so, Xiqing and I we were partners at the time. So we were already, thinking the same way.
拍这部电影，在戏里面印象最深刻是有个场景，就是大姐，她在柜台当那个收纳。然后导演呢，两个导演就故意安排一个桥段，是某一个客人去点菜呢，然后呢，好像是点了不知道什么东西，然后开始要找钱，然后就开始拿一块quarter 还是什么东西，就是非常非常领的钱，然后大姐就很不爽这样子，然后就觉得说你在找我麻烦嘛。但是问大姐从头到尾不知道，她就以为说这是真的啊，因为这是我们拍摄的方式，就是摄影机在旁边偷偷的拍，也没有打光，所以现场完全不是一个拍片的环境，它就是一个很自然的取景的自然的环境，这样就是一个很生活的场景。所以大姐在那种被设计的状况之下，她很自然的跟这个被安排的演员客人呢互动，然后两个人吵架这样子，那个是一个我印象很深刻的经典画面。这是在戏里面。
One experience from the shoot that really stood out was the vomiting scene. It's become kind of like an Easter egg hallmark of Sean's movies. And I remember Sean had graciously asked me, we could fake it, or if you want to do it for real, I have something I could give you that could make you throw up. So obviously, this being my first time being a lead in a feature film, I wanted to impress him and be like, I'll do it the real way. Let's like make this as authentic as possible. So there's this thing called Epicac, which my understanding is poison control centers feed you to force you to vomit. It's a little bit of a waiting game because I think it had only been like an hour or so after we had eaten dinner. And so I had taken a standard dose of Epicac. There's a couple false alarms, but you're waiting for it to hit. And I'm thinking like, maybe it's because, my tolerance for this stuff is naturally high. So I'm taking another dose of it. And then I finally took a third dose. And I don't know, maybe this is not really, maybe just Epicac's not working, right? So we're kind of like, okay. I think there's a couple of scenes where I'm just like spitting, thinking that might, help summon the demons, But then as we're kind of like, oh, you know what, this is not gonna work. That's when like the gates of hell were opening up, where it's like, I felt like a volcanic explosion where I'm trying to hold it down, cue them, be like, get it, like it's coming, It's like, oh my God, and then that's why I think in the actual film you just see the aftermath where it's kind of already coming out because I just couldn't. The forces of Epicac were just like, I had taken 3 doses. It was just unstoppable, and so it was just like projectile speed, where I think actually it's probably better that they didn't use the initial vomit. It's like, damn, Ming Ding, like what have you been doing,
I remember the constant rain when Min biking in the rain. At first, we were a little worried about the rain, but quickly we realized the rain adds so much to the production value, also to the look and the meaning of the story. And we are very lucky to have the rainiest June in recorded history in that decade. All the rain was real, and we were very happy about that.
Riding a bike in torrential downpour, I think the adrenaline and just the novelty factor of it, I was just like thrilled, like this is amazing. But to do that as a day-to-day thing, I'm sure I've been miserable. The rain was like on the level of like, you know, that Forrest Gump scene with the Lieutenant Dan. It was like that level of like, brrr, they were just hammering down on you.
我告诉你，现在你今天晚上得给我生800块出来，要不然欠蒋先生钱就2倍。
I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but you know, sort of that classic ticking time bomb structure probably comes from my love of Hollywood films, quite honestly, and us staying to some sort of convention. If anything, looking back at the film, you know, I'm hard on my own films. I have a problem with every frame of every film I've ever made, but that's my biggest criticism of Takeout. That perhaps it's too narrative, you know, perhaps it has too much of a beginning, middle, and end.
Nigga, you stay back here, man. We only need a couple of bucks to get fucking home, man. The fuck you talking about, nigga? Stay back, nigga. Stay back.
Hey, I tell you, no ears, okay?
Stay back, nigga.
Come on. You know, him getting mugged on the same day he has to deal with a smuggling debt. Okay, might be something I wouldn't write today. Today I might be a little more sophisticated in my dramatic writing.
还欠多少？
But then we really felt it was necessary with the themes that we were dealing with and the fact that we wanted to show community and friendship. It required that mugging in order for him to be saved by his friend. You know, that would not have happened if everything wasn't stripped from him moments earlier. So we do feel it was justified. It's just something today that, having written 5 to 6 screenplays since, you know, I look back at the narrative structure and I wonder whether I would have done things differently. My first film was scripted from beginning to end, and I didn't want my actors to deviate from the scripted word in any way, shape, or form. When I got to Takeout, the fact that, number one, half of it was in Mandarin, but also we were dealing with, you know, people on the street, real customers, real location. I had to accept just reality. And in a way, what I was doing, and I realize this in hindsight, this was my first experience at hybrid filmmaking. This was a hybrid between, you know, narrative fiction filmmaking and documentary filmmaking, because I wasn't doing anything but literally being a documentarian for that first month in Takeout, and then integrating all of that stuff we shot into the narrative that we eventually did. So it's purely a hybrid film. And I think Takeout taught me how to do that properly, or at least got me started in that direction. And I have applied that to all of my filmmaking since. Even Florida Project that cost, you know, $4 million, we were still street casting, we were still, you know, using locals, using real locations, sometimes capturing real life, and then, you know, mixing that in with our controlled narrative filmmaking.
第一次他上映的时候啊，他有叫我去看嘛。我一出来的这个访问我，那个访问我，我好像傻傻的，我也很高兴啊！我知道了很多人知道我，在99届，哦，你在103届做啊，你拍电影呢，我有看你电影呢，这样子，不错嘛。那个时候我做的是103，他的movie 是在99届那个戏院上映了，哇！他一上映，很多人来问我自己都好像什么理由，这套什么片呢？这样厉害，很多顾客啊，也不是我顾客也知道了，他有过来问我，哎呀，你做得很好啊，哎呀，你什么，就是这样，大家都好。
From 2004 to 2022, so much has gone on, but it's really sad to say immigration issues still stay the same. So the film is still very relevant even to today. And I hope more people will see it and will make them think about all the immigration issues.
You know, when we made this film in 2003, undocumented immigration was a hot button topic. And guess what? In 2022, it still is. You know, in 2016, the 45th president of the United States literally ran on the promise of building a wall on our Mexican border, with the hopes of reducing illegal immigration. So you can see this has not gone away. If anything, has become more politicized. So that's sad, number one. And number two, obviously racial discrimination hasn't gone away. And this is evident in the fact that there have been the anti-Asian attacks during the coronavirus pandemic. So, you know, what's sad about the film is that not much has changed in the last 20 years. And that's something in which it's hard to look back on these movies with the hope that, you know, you're shining a light on an issue. And yet, you know, you're still living with it, you know, decades later.
这个美国梦对这些从大陆去打工的中国人来讲，其实是很难实现的哈。这样子的角色在纽约这个地方要生存，就是必须要靠送外卖，或者是在里面做厨师，或是一些比较低廉的劳力工作。要实现真的所谓的美国梦，其实是困难的，因为他们的生活事实上条件品质除了很差之外，他们赚的钱其实也不是那么多，但是他们又要把钱寄回家，所以能够实现美国梦，我觉得那个困难度是蛮高。至于说现在在美国的华人，有没有办法实现美国梦？其实老实讲，我不是那么清楚，因为我在那边念完书之后，我就直接回来，所以我不是那么清楚。不过以当时的状况来看的话，我觉得不容易。
拿到绿卡了没有啊？
绿卡没有啊，在想办法。办假结婚啊。
It definitely, now looking back, it definitely does have its own specific feel and look, which I think is really cool. And I'm really happy that Takeout is a part of that. And what's great about the film getting released properly now through Criterion is that now, 20 years later, I actually had the money to finish the film properly, the way we always wanted to. Look, what went to Slamdance in 2003 was literally me pressing export from my Final Cut Pro project. That was it. And that's not how we wanted it. We, you know, Xiqing and I are, you know, filmmakers. We wanted a polished film. And I think we finally got, even though, you know, it starts on standard definition video, it's still, we were finally able to finesse it properly in post-production. And we went through an incredible restoration produced by Alex Coco, who is one of my producers now on my feature films, and he did an amazing job. We went back to the original elements. We up-resed our mini DV tapes to 2K. We shot them out to celluloid film, then scanned it back in, then regraded, and we remixed all of the original sound with a proper sound mix. So it's exactly how we wanted the film to premiere back in 2004, and now audiences get to see it that way, and we're so happy about that.